also support the separation of religion and state and accuse the president of chipping away at it.
You can't learn religion in school, I think. It's about you and God. You should learn maybe in your home.
They can send their kids to mosques. Schools are for science, I think.
Terzi is in medical school. Her scientific training in Turkey makes her competitive for jobs here and abroad. But she fears that might not be the case for the next generation of pious Turks. Lauren Freyer, NPR News, Istanbul.
It's 8:40 and this is WBEZ. Coming up next, refrigeration nearly killed the salt harvest industry in France, but a local food movement is now reviving it. Also, we will hear from Adam Hutnik, director of a new ESPN documentary called What Carter Lost. It's about the team that won the Texas State Championship when the school, highlighted in Friday Night Lights, lost. WBEZ is supported by Roosevelt University's The American Dream Reconsidered Conference, exploring the ideal and reality of the American dream, September 11th through 14th. Speakers include political commentators David Axelrod and Bill Kristol, roosevelt.edu/American Dream. And by Chicago's First Lady Cruises, home of the Chicago Architecture Foundation River Cruise. Tickets are available dockside on Chicago's Riverwalk or ticketmaster.com/rivercruise. Weather forecast. Couldn't be nicer out there. Lots of sunshine, pretty comfortable. 64 degrees going up to about 76. Slight chance of rain overnight tonight, a low near 61. 73 on Thursday, slight chance of rain, and then sunshine on Friday, high of 74. It's 8:42. Here's news.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Dave Mattingly. President Trump heads to Nevada today. He'll be speaking at the American Legion's National Convention in Reno. NPR's Domenico Montanaro says the president's speech follows last night's remarks in Phoenix, where Trump threatened a government shutdown if Congress fails to fully fund his proposed wall along the U.S.-Mexico border.
There's no indication that the Senate Republicans or anyone else is going to actually fully fund the border wall. And does Trump stick to it, though? Does he decide that the government must shut down in order to get what he wants? Or does he take some measure of a smaller amount of money and declare victory and go home?
Energy Transfer Partners is suing a number of environmental groups. NPR's Jeff Brady says the company that built the Dakota Access Oil Pipeline accuses the groups of interfering and running up construction costs as the pipeline was being completed in North Dakota.
The pipeline route travels near the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation south of Bismarck. Opponents worried a pipeline spill could pollute the local water supply. In its federal lawsuit, the company claims Greenpeace, Earth First, and other environmental groups formed a criminal enterprise that disseminated false information, interfered with the company's ability to do business, and increased the cost of the pipeline by at least $300 million.
I'm Dave Mattingly, NPR News in Washington.
8:43, 65 degrees. I'm Lisa Labas, WBEZ News. House Speaker Michael Madigan has canceled a scheduled vote today on an Illinois House session. It was supposed to vote on Governor Rauner's veto of a school funding bill. Madigan says he canceled today's House session so legislative leaders can continue negotiating on a compromise for that school funding bill. The override of an amendatory veto of legislation, which changes the way the state pays for schools, needs 71 votes, and it would cancel changes Governor Rauner made and put into law a new funding model. A judge affirms that the conviction of a woman who filed $100 billion in bogus liens against judges, former prosecutor, and other law enforcers in Chicago. She did that apparently to avenge her brother's drug conviction. As a self-described sovereign citizen, the woman did not recognize government authority over her. The Chicago Daily Law Bulletin reports a federal judge ruled the woman had missed deadlines to challenge her conviction and 7-year prison sentence. 8:44, here's traffic with Adam Chappelle.
Police are still watching this crash outbound Kennedy on the ramp from North Avenue. Police are on scene with that. Eden's running 19 minutes. Lake Cook to the junction, half hour back. Kennedy, 54 minutes. O'Hare to downtown, 36 in both the locals and the express from Montrose, 47 back to the airport. Inbound Ike Dolores divided about an hour and 2 minutes in from Thorndale, 47 out. Stevenson, 53 minutes in from 355, 34 from the drive to the Veterans Toll. Dan Ryan, 22 minutes, 95th on in, 14 back out to the split. Lakeshore Drive still slow slow on the southbound side, Lawrence down towards about Fullerton or so, then hit and miss slow spots from there to the Oak Street curve. We are delay-free across the board on all of our CTA and Metro lines. WBEZ traffic is supported by Fields Volvo Northfield. The 2017 S90 all-wheel drive T6 Momentum is now available for test drives. Fields Volvo at 770 Frontage Road in Northfield and at volvonorthfield.com. I'm Adam Chappelle, WBEZ.
Thanks, Adam. White Sox hosting the Twins tonight, 7:10 down on the south side. James Shields will start for the White Sox. Twins beat the Sox yesterday 4-1. Cubs beat the Reds 13-9. The Cubs continue in Cincinnati tonight at 6:10. It's 8:45.
This is Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm David Green.
And I'm Elsa Chang. Sea salt has been harvested for more than 1,000 years on the Atlantic coast of France. The industry declined in the mid-20th century, but with foodies looking for ever fancier ingredients, NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports the salt marshes are making a comeback.
It's a summer evening on the island of Noirmoutier. As the sun shimmers on the rustling marsh grasses, Hervé Zarka is raking in sea salt from shallow pools in his salt marsh. Zarka uses a simousi, a 10-foot pole tipped with a flat board. Salt has been harvested this way since at least the 7th century, when Benedictine monks dug the canals that bring seawater into this marshland.
This is my little paradise. The sea is 50 yards away and I'm working the land. That's the whole principle of this island, really. A piece of land in the middle of the sea, and to work with only the birds around you.
Zarka explains how the canals feed seawater into a series of clay ponds, and as the water flows between the pools and evaporates, each becomes saltier than the last, until the crystals form in the bottom. Zarka says Noirmoutier's salt industry was booming in the 1940s, until refrigerators allowed people to preserve food with cold instead of salt, and consumers began to demand pure white refined salt for their tables. On another side of the island, 32-year-old Jessica Tessier and her father Jean-Pierre are working in their family salt marsh. She grew up here, left for college and a job in Paris, then decided to return and continue the work of several generations. Tessier remembers being out in the salt marshes when she was a little girl.
My grandfather was producing salt, and he used to make little tools for me, so just adapted to my size. So I had those little tools with which I tried desperately to harvest some salt.
Noirmoutier's salt began to make a comeback in the 1990s with the renewed focus on fresh, local food. Famous French chefs touted the mineral properties of natural sea salt and sprinkled their best dishes with fleur de sel. Fleur de sel, which translates as salt flour, is a fragile salt crystal that Tessier is skimming from the surface with a special tool called a luce.
It's like a thin layer of ice on icy water, if you see. So it's really thin, and it's really made under the action of wind and sun, and the particles of salt just stay at the surface of the water, like if you were creaming some really creamy milk.
Fleur de sel fetches 20 times the price of the coarse sel raked up from the bottom, allowing salt makers to earn a decent living. But rain can ruin an entire salt harvest. The return of Noirmoutier's salt industry is also a boon for tourism. When he's not raking salt, Hervé Zarka takes groups of tourists into the marshes in a horse-drawn carriage.
La deuxième grande révolution, je dirais.
On a recent afternoon, Zarka tells them about the 3 things that have revolutionized an industry that's hardly changed for centuries. The rubber tire, which allowed wheelbarrows into the marshes without sinking into the clay, new materials that have lightened traditional heavy wooden tools, and smartphones that let every salt maker know when it's going to rain. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News, Noirmoutier, France.
It's 8:49 and this is WBEZ. Coming up next, we will hear about a new documentary called What Carter Lost. It's about the team that was not highlighted in the football story Friday Night Lights. It's 8:49.
The attack on a diplomatic compound in Benghazi, Libya, set off a political firestorm.
Take a look at Benghazi.
Benghazi.
What happened that night?
Obama tried to hide the truth.
Is it a phony scandal?
Questions still linger.
5 years later, no one has been tried for the attack until now. The upcoming trial of a suspected Benghazi attacker this afternoon on All Things Considered from NPR News.
This afternoon between 3 and 6:30 or anytime with the WBEZ app. From authors to artists, elected officials, and everyday people, only WBEZ and Public Radio bring you such a unique mix of voices. Independent news every day at 91.5 FM or on demand anytime, anywhere with the WBEZ app.
There were big protests in response to the jailing of pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong. I'm Jerome McDonnell on The Next Worldview, Hong Kong's uncertain future for the rule of law. Listen to Worldview today at noon on WBEZ.
It's just about 8:51, 65 degrees going up to 76, a beautiful sunny day.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Cancer Treatment Centers of America, which publishes treatment results for 11 types of cancer, including quality of life ratings, to help patients and their caregivers make informed choices about their care. Learn more at cancercenter.com. From Magoosh, online test prep for exams such as the ACT, SAT, and GRE. More at magoosh.com. Magoosh. Prep smart, go far, enjoy the ride. And from the Kresge Foundation at kresge.org.
8:51, this is WBEZ. Thanks for being with us today.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Elsa Chang.
And I'm David Green. That theme song, I could play at any time of day. It's from Friday Night Lights. I was totally addicted. It is the story of a high school football team from West Texas fighting for the state title. There was a book, there was the TV series, and also the movie starring Coach Billy Bob Thornton.
Now, if you want to win state, you're going to have to beat a team of giants, a team of monsters over in Dallas.
Now, those so-called monsters were from Dallas Carter High School. They won the state title in the movie. Their players were almost caricatures, really thug-like.
I wouldn't say almost caricatured, and I wouldn't say almost thug-like. They were huge. They came out wearing garb that, seemed like it might be suggesting that they were gang members.
That's the voice of Adam Hutnick. He's a film director who got interested in telling the story of the real Dallas Carter High School, which he's done in a new documentary. Dallas Carter is really an afterthought in Friday Night Lights, that evil team that stole the championship. But the real team's march to the state title in 1988 is a story about race. It's a story about the pressure on young athletes. It's also the story of a darn good football team.
Their entire defense could run faster than a 4.6.
That's NFL
caliber
of quickness,
speed. Yeah. The number of scholarships they got, the number of guys who went on to play some form of professional football. By every measure, this was one of the greats.
And it's not the story of a great team that was a bunch of inner city kids from a down on its luck neighborhood making good. This was middle class Dallas, right?
Absolutely. This was a black middle class neighborhood, mostly two-parent families, mostly professionals. The teachers would say the joke was the student parking lot was a heck of a lot nicer than the teacher parking lot. And
nicer cars there.
Yeah.
The trouble for Dallas Carter came during the playoffs. There were questions about an algebra grade for one member of the team. The other mostly white schools fought a legal battle to kick them out of the playoffs.
There is no question that if Carter had been one of the predominantly white schools that was always there, everything would have been handled differently.
Parents, teachers, school officials, they fought back, and in the end, Carter was allowed to play, and they won the state title.
Your final, 31-14.
This game was bigger than us. To win the state championship in Dallas, that's big.
I just remember feeling a sense of pride and elation that they succeeded.
Offers from big-time college recruiters started coming in. There was all the celebration. But that was not the end of the story, because this happened.
The robbery in progress call was a hold-up alarm at a video store.
After the roller coaster of this season and postseason, you had a few guys on that team really, to my mind, inexplicably going and joining an armed robbery ring, for pretty much no reason. They did it, they were middle-class kids. They had cars. They had all the clothes they want. But I think they weren't ready for the adventure to be done.
So football was done, and they needed just some way to be risking and feeling like they were doing something exciting or dangerous?
Yeah, I think at some level they were chasing a rush. I don't personally believe, having spent a lot of time talking to them, that any of them were malicious people, that they were looking to hurt anyone, but they were so divorced from any sense of what the impact of their actions might be that they just didn't care. They weren't thinking about it. So I think they believed that no matter what they did, somebody would get them out of it because they were that special. They were invincible.
Can you describe that? There's some old footage that you used of two of these young men trying to keep themselves together to deliver a statement before saying to make the case